All righty. Hello, everybody. It's Kate Richburg, and it is Wednesday, February 2nd, and it is time for Beadshop Live. Here I am. Let me adjust this camera a little bit here so I can see all of you. Pardon me, and you can see all of me. It's great to see everybody here. Today we're um, jumping in and broadcasting on a bunch of different channels today because I know I'd like to welcome those of you who are watching on the Great Bead Extravaganza page and YouTube channel. I know that a lot of you guys love seed beads, and so this is going to be a fun one for you, as well as to remind everybody that we've got the Great Bead Extravaganza coming up, and Beadshop and I are excited to be a part of it. We've got that coming up on the weekend of February 18th. So if you're not a part of that already, jump on over. Pardon me. Jump on over there on Facebook and join that Great Bead Extravaganza group. And there's going to be a really fun weekend of jam-packed learning, including a great kit from, or three actually great kits from us here at beadshop.com, which I'm going to reveal very soon. So if you are new to us, welcome. If you are old to us, welcome back. It's great to see everybody here. And of course, you can find us on all of our social outlets, at beadshop.com on Instagram, on the Bead Table on Facebook. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button so you'll get notification every time we go live here. So thanks for watching us live or on the replay. And of course, you can find all of the information on the project that I'm going to do today, as well as the products that I use in it, over on our website at beadshop.com. Make sure to sign up for our newsletter for the latest discounts, giveaways, and new products. Here in February, traditionally it's the time of year that I travel to the Tucson gem shows, but because of this new COVID strain, I decided to play it prudent and stay at home. But I've had a bunch of virtual appointments with my vendors, which is awesome. So stay tuned. This whole month, we're going to be bringing you great Tucson finds and really great stuff that's coming up. So we've got Janice over on our YouTube channel saying hello and moderating over there. And of course, we've got our Gita from Across the Miles moderating over on Facebook. So it's great to see you all here. Oh my goodness, it is jam-packed with so many of you watching. So thank you so much. I see everybody here jumping in. My buddy Abby over from the Bead Place, one of my cohorts over at the Great Bead Extravaganza. I see you. Here's my ring so you can see it again. It's great. Some friends, Jenny, my high school friend Jenny is here, which is awesome. My mom's here. Our friend Zoe, who I hope to see you, Zoe, at our bead retreat. Maybe more information will be coming out from that soon. So many friends are here, which is great. I love it. I love this virtual bead table where we can all pull up a chair and create together. So I guess without further ado, let me get this second camera in here and let's see what we've got today. Janice said my skin is glowing. It may be my new skin regimen, or it may just be that I have better lighting. Who knows? But thank you, JP. You of all people are a big thanks, because you have the best skin ever, if I do say so myself. So let's go ahead and add this. Tracy Proctor is here from Tierra Cast. I will tell her good morning. We are using some of our really fantastic finds from Tierra Cast, and I'm going to show you those. We are so excited to use these components. We love our Tierra Cast around here. So let me go ahead and solo lay out this. And let's take a look at what we've got here. So you guys are so super nice. Maybe it's, I don't know. It could be that maybe it's my My new lipstick. I don't know, but you guys are super sweet and thank you for those kind props because I can use them today. So thank you. Um, okay, so this project, it started way, way back when with our earrings called the dancer earrings. Um, and the dancer earrings use, I should see if I can well, you can jump over there and see those over on beadshop.com. And our buddy, well, let me see if I can just jump over there just real quick. Bear with me here just a moment. Let me do this one. Our buddy Linnea, who did a whole bunch of really great stuff for Beadshop. Unfortunately, she was here before I was here, so I never really got to work with her. But let me upload these. This is one of her, and correct me if I'm wrong, Janice, on this one, but I believe this was a Linnea project. Let me go ahead. I'm going to upload this screenshot that I just grabbed here so you guys can see this here real quick. These are our earrings called the Dancer, and so they're named after all of these dances, right? She named them. And so here, this one's called Salsa, this one. And you can see kind of where this project started and where I grabbed my inspiration. I always think it's really important to kind of, give props to your inspiration for these things. And so, Linnea, between you and between our dear Emily Miller, taught me the joys of Brickstitch here. So these are called Salsa, and you can see we're using that beautiful tiara cast leafy loop pendant that is actually half of a clasp, but we also sell it here just as the loop. So they're a little bit smaller. So this same technique, and I'm going to talk about design, then we're going to talk about the technique, then I'm going to talk to you about the piece that I made. So what I'm going to share with you today, the techniques, you can adapt them to any loop you like. Okay. So, yeah, and the project is by Linnea Lurcher, and she did our Pathways cuff, a lot of great stuff that she contributed while with her time here at Beadshop. So we thank you so much for that. So, so that's where these earrings began. And then you can go on Beadshop and see a bunch of the different ones and some other iterations. I was going to wear my Dragon Dance ones, which are my favorite, but I think they're actually still at the office. So I pulled these guys out. These are ones that I made, I don't know, a while back. These are called Mambo. The Dragon Dance ones, you guys may remember. Let me see if I can screenshot that one. Just as a reminder for you guys, you can see them on our website, and each of these has an ingredients list for them, so you can grab the ingredients to make them. But this one is the Dragon Dance ones that I love, and we use the I-Ching coins. And you can see in this one, the one that I did here, you can really see the thread. This is what I like to call thread forward. And so I use the KO in Pebble for that. This one that I made today, or well, yesterday and this morning, this one I called Rhumba. You can see I've used KO in gold. And so there's a lot of thread going on there, but it's kind of part of the design. So I don't mind it at all. I think it looks great, and it just kind of blends in with the piece. Okay. So let me talk to you about the basics for this earring, however you make them. Oh, and I also have this, and we've never really shown you this, but this earring came from this inspiration here. This is made by our buddy Allie Morey, and Allie is shared many of her designs with us, headed up the design team here for Beadshop.com. This is one that Allie did, and she strung it on a Chinese knotting cord that she did the spiral macrame knot. But what I loved and what I took inspiration for, see how she used the Tiara cast coil right here. Okay. I could have used that tiara cast coil, but I used instead that Nun Design jump ring. But either would work. You could use a jump ring, you can use um, a soldered ring, however you want to do it to connect it. She also used, I feel like there's one, oh no, I used it because I'm so clever. See how I used in this one, I used a wire guard. See that there? That wire guard there. Okay. So you can attach them any way you want. So this one, what I love about Allie's is this is actually a Nun Design piece, one of our hoops that we have on the website. She brick stitched to the outer and to the inner. And so I'm going to show you that here. And you can see I have brick stitched to the outer and then back into the center of the ring. I don't know if you can hear, but Oliver, who you never see, is meowing up a storm out there. So he's our little guy who is very timid. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe Timmy fell down the well. You never know. But here's a nice picture of all of those three beauties together. This brick stitch would make a great pendant like what Allie did here, which would be great. Or you could make them into earrings. So yeah, you guys do hear a kitty. Hang on for me, you guys, just 1 second here. I'm going to grab something real quick. Okay, so here are the hammered hoops from Tiara Cast. I wanted this earring to be big because you know me, and I'm going to show you these on my ear before we leave so you can see how large they are. This is the 1.25 millimeter, the 1.25 millimeter hammered hoop that I've got here. That's what I used for this. Okay. And so if you wanted to make them a little bit smaller, and there was a question earlier, are they heavy? They're not actually. And one of the reasons you can see I use this woven earring topper also from Tiara Cast, right? I did that instead of an ear wire, so it holds up close to the ear and actually sits really nicely. Okay, so even though it's large, it's not super heavy. And so, as I said, this is the 1.25 inch, right? Right here, a little over 31.5 millimeters. We also got in and we launched these a while back. This is the 1 inch, okay? And I'm going to actually demo on this 1 inch one because it's going to make things go a little bit faster. And you can see that 1 inch is the same size that I used in this Mambo earring here. And then we have the small hammered disc, and this one is about 12.8 millimeters, which is about 1/2 inch here. So like this one down below, right? So you can see if you just wanted to make a smaller hoop like this, you could use this one. You could use this small one like this and just make the earring really small. You can see I've used here the briolets, and I could have also stitched a briolet here in the center, but I wanted this to have more of a hoop feel, so I didn't. But you could very easily stitch a briolet down here in the center. Okay, so this really gives you a chance to really design, right? To really play around. So the ingredients list that I used is on the website on beadshop.com. And we have episode notes from, especially for this Mambo earring. Go ahead and download the episode notes if you haven't. We don't really do episode notes anymore because they really were a time suck, but a lot of our former broadcasts have them, and they're very helpful. And especially this one that I did with this Mambo earring, super helpful for this brick stitch in the round. So let me tell you, let me put this earring to the fore right here, and you can see kind of what I've used, and let me talk you through it. So here's the ring that I used. It's the 1¼ inch, 1.25. And what I did was I started with a base row. So we did that base row first, right, and went all the way around. And that base row, I used the terracotta. Okay, and that terracotta is the 8-1236. And I wanted to mix some shiny and matte. Most of my beads in this are matte, the matte mustard, this matte kind of sage green, and then this matte terracotta. Then this peach lined, I think this is shiny, transparent with an opaque lining. And then I also had these Aqua Celsian 3mm that are going around the bottom. Really nice. Okay, so, and I wanted to make this one a little bit differently, though I grabbed a lot of inspiration from Allie's piece here. I wanted this to have a little more of like an earring feel or a drop feel. So I brick stitched, around, and then as I finished this second loop, you can see here, I started with this third round, and the third round has those 8/0 in the peach line, then the terracotta. Then I went in and did 2 rows, a short row of peach, and then an even shorter row. And then I came in and finished it off with the 11/0 and this Aqua Celsian. Okay. And then I finished off with 1 row of the brick stitch here in the 11/0 and then a Picot row. So I'm going to show you how I do all of these, and I'm going to do it on this small one so I'm not stitching all the way around being super far. And so, and I'll show you, the brick stitch is really forgiving. And so Anita is asking, and it's a great question, can one do it with a square frame? You bet. You can do this with any shape frame. You can do this with a drop, you can do it with a square, you can do it with a rectangle, whatever works. And I'm going to show you how that all comes together. And Gina's asking, what's the color combination? Inspiration, right? So just did I have you in mind when I made this? Maybe I did, Gina. It really would compliment you for sure. I named it Rhumba because I feel like if I were going dancing in Havana, which I would love to do someday, dancing the Rhumba in Havana, I would wear these earrings is what I would do. A fun fact about me, yes, I used to do some ballroom dancing, not particularly well, but I had a lot of spunk. So the rumba is a fun dance. So anyway, so these would be fun to wear, I think, if we can ever go out dancing again. I have hope that we will. So this ring, so what I did here, I started, like I said, with that terracotta, and I made that brick stitch loop around. And hang tight, I'm going to show you how I did it. But this first one is with 8/0, okay? It was this first ring all the way around. I did the 8/0. That was number 1. And then the second row, you can see, let me go in a little bit closer and just put that one in. There we go. I jumped up to the 6/0. Okay, so that second row is the 6/0. And the color I used, this was, the top one was 1, 2, 3, 6. And then that second row was, it was the matte, the 6-2033 here. Okay, is this one. All right. And so Can you see the real size difference, the visual size difference? I could have used eights all the way around again here, but I took a leaf out of Allie's book here, and I loved how she started with the 8, then popped up to the 6. So that's what I did too. Because you know what? If Allie Morey does it, it's got to be right, right? So then I had made these 2 rounds all the way around. And so I just had, this going on. And then I thought, all right, I need to start making some shape because I didn't do, you can lend some shape to this earring by doing a ring up top and then a ring down at the bottom, right? You could do that. But I wanted this to be an all-inclusive one piece, so I wanted it to have more shape. And I thought, well, Brickstitch is easy. I can start it and I can end it anywhere I want. So I used another row of 8-aughts. Can you see that here? And I just put it along the bottom. So those 8-aughts are, where did the tube go? Here it is. So that was number 2. This is row number 3. And that's the 8-aught, and that's 275. That's this guy, this kind of peach-lined AB kind of, and it gave it some sparkle, okay, which I liked. So then I was here. I had this row, and this row. Next, I thought, you know what? I needed something to ground it, so I wanted to add that terracotta row in again. So I just did that, moved it along that row of 8-aughts. And then I thought, well, it's probably time to start shaping this piece. So I just started my Brickstitch down here and I kind of counted. I counted down and I counted down from there and I went, all right, I'm going to start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to skip 6, stitch those in and stop when I have 6 left over here. Okay, and that's kind of the same thing that I did here to try and make it even. And then I came in, needled back down to here and skipped 2 of these guys and just stitched these in at the bottom so that I had 2 left over there. Okay, so it was symmetrical. So then I had the earring, it kind of looked, it had this row, this row, this row, this row, this row, and this row. Then I thought, well, let me finish it up. And I'm going to do kind of a 3, kind of like a Picot-esque kind of thing, and I'm going to show you how I do that. But I started with the 3 beads here, the 11-aught, the 3mm, the 11-aught, and then I just kept going through, adding my 3mm, my 11-aught, my 3mm, my 11-aught, until I went all the way around. And what I did for these guys is I just went around and just followed the shape of the bottom of the earring. And so you might think, oh, how did you turn that corner there? It's actually really easy. So I'm going to show you. You just keep stitching and pretend that it's not shaped, right? Just don't even worry. Okay. So these 3mm fire polish look terrific. And then I did a single row of the 11-aughts up here to give myself a base row. And then I did a picot stitch through all of those and back around there. And before I did this 11-aught, what I did was I came in and I wove my loop in here. And so I'll show you how I did that too. So it may look kind of complicated, but it's all really pretty simple. And as you're designing, you can kind of design on the fly with this. It's not real difficult. Just stop when you want to stop and then turn around and come back with some more beads. And I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to add thread as well. It's really simple doing this earring. Then I thought after this was all done, the interior of this loop was kind of empty. Okay, so I just did one more interior Brickstitch base row right on the inside. Okay, so that's kind of how this went together. All right, so, and the 11-aught color that I used, that 11-aught was 11-aught is the 1233 here, that mustard. Okay. And you could definitely add dangles down to this, right? We have some really great Brickstitch earrings that Emily has done, so you can also watch that episode, and kind of marry these two projects together to just simply stitch some dangles into here if you wanted to as well. Okay, so let me show you how I begin. And I'm going to use this small one here, just so I'm not stitching around, everything too much. So I'm going to start with that terracotta rose. So I've got some here. And also, just as a heads up, if you're using your fire polish and you're using them with two earrings, what I did was I went in and I separated my fire polish out. So I knew that I had this many to work with this earring. I didn't use too many. So then I know I have these for my second earring here. Okay. So to begin, a base row for this brick stitch is going to be different than all the other brick stitch rows. Okay. So I'm going to reel off. Let me go up here just so you can see this. I'm going to keep using this gold colored thread. This is a silver ring, so you're really going to see the thread, but that's okay. I want you to see the thread path here. So I don't know, maybe I'll get myself about a yard of thread, maybe. Adding thread to this project is really pretty easy. And I am going to give myself a little bit of wax here, okay? For this KO thread. So I'm going to wax it here, just a couple of passes through the bar of beeswax, just like so, and it'll kind of tame everything. Okay, you can use a size 10 sharps or a size 10 regular seed beading needle, whatever works for you. And I'm going to come in, I'm going to pull my thread down right under next to my thumbnail there, and I'm going to just lay the eye of the needle on that thread. Okay. Now I'm going to give myself a little bit of a tail when I tie this thread on. And essentially this is what I do. I come through, and it doesn't matter if this is the top or the bottom, the front or the back, it doesn't really matter. These earrings don't really have a front or a back anyway. So what I do is I just come in and I give myself a little bit of a tail, maybe about 4 inches. I'll come in and I'll tie a square knot here, right here. I don't want to get that in there. But essentially you just tie the thread on. So right over left, left over right, and down. And if you want to go ahead and give yourself a little bit of, sorry, I want to get everything in line here, a little bit of glue on that knot with your GS hypo, you can. See, the trick is always getting the lid off of this, or back onto it rather. And now I'm just going to let this tail sit there for now. Okay. So this basic brick stitch, let me pour out a few more of these orange ones. The basic brick stitch, you start by picking up 2 beads, right? So I'm going to pick up 2. I'm going to pull them down. And can you see how when I come around, they're going to lay on top of this hoop? I'm going to get in a little closer so you can see here. So these 2 beads are on. Now I simply come around my hoop and through the hole of the second bead. Can you see that? So I've come in here, strung on my 2 beads, brought my thread around the hoop, and then back up through this hole of the second bead, and then just pull it tight. Now you can see how that bead is now sitting right along the edge, the width of this loop. Okay, this one here is sitting a little funny, but when I come all the way around, I'm going to needle up through that and it'll bring that one down. So I'm going to go kind of fast. And so now I just put on one bead at a time. Okay, so here's my one bead. My thread is coming up through the hole of that bead number 2. So I put on bead number 3. The thread is coming down through that hole. The thread wraps around the loop and then it goes up through that bead. And Geeta just linked our seed bead school on Brickstitch. If you go to beadshop.com and you go to our learning, Emily did a whole bunch of broadcasts that we called Seed Bead School. And Seed Bead School was really super helpful in teaching you all of the basics of a bunch of different seed bead stitches. So see how I've put that bead on, that I've come down through that bead hole, around the loop, and then back up through that bead. Okay, so now I've got, and I pull it tight. So see how this is sitting? And I'm making little thread bridges here. Okay, so 2 questions I want to address that I've gotten. One is, do I condition the thread? And yes, I put that beeswax on this KO, which just helps, I think, especially with these seed bead stitches. I like to wax my thread if I can. And then someone asked about the glue that I'm using. I use GS Hypo, which is a more flexible kind of a glue. I wouldn't recommend using super glue because super glue is super runny and it also is stiff when it dries. So it's really going to stiffen the thread and it's going to run along the thread. The GS Hypo stays really where you put it, so you're not going to have that issue with it running anywhere. So that's my glue of choice for this. And I know I promised you a show on glue and all the different glues that we carry. So hang tight because that is going to be coming. So see how I'm just stitching this along and see how I'm making these little thread bridges like this. Okay, and you can see here, you can see the thread coming along. If you match your thread to your base project, like if I had a gray thread here, the thread would really disappear into the project. But I don't want it to disappear for you guys, right? I want you guys to see it because I want you to see this thread path. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going. We're almost halfway there. I'm going to show you also, let me see if I can get this halfway here. I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to complete the rest of this row around here with 8/0, just so you can see that a base row can also, I'm sorry, with 6/0. You can also see that a base row can be completed with those. So let me just come in here and do this. Plus the 6/0 will go a little bit faster. But remember, we go up through our bead, put on a bead, go down and around the hoop, and back up through that bead hole. You want to make sure that when you are needling up through the bead, that you're not splitting your thread through the bead hole. Okay, so when I come up here and I put my needle through, I'm not splitting the bead because that way then I can kind of manipulate my thread a little bit and move it around. So let me get some 6/0 here. Let me show you how you can just switch gears and bead sizes, right? I'm going to get rid of this tail, but I need to do one whole round before I do that. Okay, so see how I've just put the big one on? like that. That's it, right? Thanks for this love on this ring. This is a ring that I made a while back. The cabochon is Damascus steel, made by a company called Grizzly Iron. They're in Tucson. I got it in one of my Tucson trips. And so you can see, I'll show you the back of it here, the Damascus. So thanks. It is a little heavy since it is steel. It's a steel cab. But I love Damascus steel, and so that I bought for myself. So that's what I miss about Tucson, though I'm very grateful for all of these virtual appointments that our vendors are doing to accommodate us. Very, very thankful for that. But it's not quite the same as like seeing all the brand new stuff in person, right? So, and having these little special finds. But I have high hopes for next year, right? Though I did have high hopes for this year, but for me and my risk tolerance, I just couldn't do it. It just wasn't. It wasn't in the cards for me. So, so I'm staying home. But that's okay. Tucson will go on. We hope for sure. So see how I'm bringing this around, stitching through, and you can see those 6/0 move a lot faster, right, than those 8/0. So I could do this with 6s, I could do it with 8s. Remember, this is the 1-inch ring that I'm using from Tierra Cast, the hammered ring. We carry them in a bunch of different finishes as well, so you can choose the finish that works for you. If you're a big fan of copper like I am, this would be beautiful in copper. And even though I'm using the silver here and I'm using this gold thread, it's not really that noticeable, right? But again, if you want your thread to kind of fade into the background, match it to the findings color that you're using, and it should work just fine. So now as we come in to close up this round, okay, you need to think about like the space that you have left, okay, like this. It looks to me like one of these 6/0, I lucked out. That'll fit in just perfectly. When I did this interior, though, right here, I put in one 6/0 and it waved, it made the piece kind of wavy. And you can see that actually here in this row. See how it's a little, if I turn it, see how it's a little wavy here? So I probably could have omitted one of these. It doesn't fuss me too much. It's not super noticeable unless I, I show it, right? What you want to do though, and you can kind of see it here, there's a little bit of space there. So I opted not to make it too tight. I opted to like leave a little bit of space, and I just stitched it in and around just so it came in as tightly as it could. So it's not really super noticeable, right? But this round right here looks like it perfectly fit. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to just nestle that bead right down, come around, come back up through this bead. Now remember the last little bead that was sitting here, our last little 8/0 here? It's kind of coming up to the side. I want to stitch down the top hole from the top so that it sits nice and flat. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to stitch that one more time so it's tight. There we go. Okay, so you can see here's my ring stitched on the top. So maybe I would use that smaller one up top and have these big ones down at the bottom. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this thread now, okay, because I want to get it out of my way. It's kind of in my way. So let me get another needle here because I don't want to unthread a needle. I might need to use it later. So let me get one of these size 10 beading needles. I'm going to come in, and this is just how I'd weave off a thread if I ran out of thread too. Same thing. So I'm going to come in, I'll thread that tail on this needle, which is why you need enough here to do this with. And I'm going to come up through that A dot, down through that A dot, up through that A dot, down through that A dot. Can you see what I'm doing there? Make a square. So go back, come around, and I think I'm good to go. So I'm just going to come in and clip it. I also could tie a knot, bring it around and tie the knot, but I think that's going to be just fine. So we've got this. Okay, so you can see with this earring that I did here, you can see that that terracotta went all the way around. Then that A dot, that sage, went all the way around. But on this one, I did the terracotta up top in 8s and the sage down at the bottom at 6s. So let's go ahead and bring another row down here. Okay, so let's introduce another bead. And I'm going to introduce this 6/0 here. Okay, and so now, well, maybe I should have tied a knot. See, that's coming out, but I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to stitch and stuff in here. So I'm just going to let it go. So now what I do is I come in, so at the beginning of every section, I'm going to come in and I'm going to add 2 beads to my start. Okay, just like I did back here. I'm going to add these 2 beads. They're going to slide down. Now, I don't go down into bead holes any longer, right? This is where the brick stitch happens. I'm going to go under these beaded bridges now. So see, there's a line of thread here, that beaded bridge. I put my needle underneath and see what happens here? My 2 beads just kind of come in and they sit next to one another. And I'm going to take this thread, this needle, and needle up through that bead right there. Now you kind of have to guess where all of these beads are going to sit. So now I'm going to put on another bead, okay? And it's going to come in and it's going to go under that bridge, that same bridge. So see how it kind of tightens up that space or kind of fills in that space. But I'm not going through my bead holes any longer. I'm going under those bridges. Okay, so another A dot. Now I'm working from the back to the front. You could work from the front to the back. You just need to be consistent because your thread bridge, the thread that you send under the bridge, can you see that there? That's what holds this stitch in place. Okay, and then you come in and you tighten. All right, so now I'm going to put on my other single one. Now I have to make a decision. See how I've got a thread bridge there and I've got a thread bridge there. If I go under this one, that A dot I think would pull over too far to the left. So I'm going to put on that A dot and go under that same bridge that I was going through before. See that there? And that sits just perfectly. So I'll come in, I'll go up through that A dot. And put on my next bead. And so I just give it a little bit of a tug like that. Can you see that? So I'm going to go a little bit faster because I want to get all the way around here. Okay. Be careful, you don't want to catch it. So as you can see, I can really mix my thread sizes even in the same round or same row that I'm doing. So again, here's that thread bridge. Grab that 8/0, in this case I'm using the 8, under the thread bridge and up and out through the hole of the bridge, or through the hole of the bead. Tighten, next bead. I think that this wants to go under that bridge too, and the beads kind of level themselves out. So it looks like I'm doing 2 beads, stitching them in the same place twice. So here's number 1, at least for this size iteration. There's number 1 I go through, and then I'm going to put it in the same place. 1 more bead there, and under the bridge I go from the back to the front for me, but you could go, as I said, from the front to the back. You just need to be consistent with what you're doing. Okay, so we're almost there. Okay, and you can see the kind of the nice contrast of the opaque and the transparent, and this AB adds a little bit of flash to this earring, a little bit of sassiness, which I like. And let's get this one down and under and up through that bead hole. Come on. There we go. The only other time I'm going to go through the holes of these beads is if I'm going to weave my thread off, or if I'm going to move my needle from one spot to another in this design. Okay, I'm also going to do it when I do the Picot. I actually stitch through the beads of the last row of the brick stitch, but I'm going to show you that. A Picot is a nice edging stitch. Emily uses it a lot in her designs. It's a nice stitch also for the bottom, like a little stay stitch if you're doing a tassel leg or something like that. It looks really nice for that as well. So we're almost done here, and I'll show you. I'm going to start a second round, a second row underneath this one, but I'm going to start it I'm going to finish. Let me see if this bead is wanted. No. See how this bead kind of comes up here past this 6/0? So I don't want it. Okay. So I'm going to take this off. I take it off. And you can see I'm going to stop it right there. And this one, well, it kind of matches that one over there on that side, doesn't it? I didn't really check the other side, so I guess I will keep that one. So no big deal. Just rethread this needle. Let me get it a little more in my focal range here, guys. Sorry about that. Let me see. There we go. Nope. Sometimes when you've used the needle or the thread a little bit and it's hard to thread, go ahead and just wax the tip of that thread again. Set the eye of that needle on the thread. Gosh, all of a sudden I can't see a thing. Bear with me here just a second. I know you struggle with this at home, but of course I'm struggling with this on camera in front of all of you that are watching. Let me go ahead and make myself a new cut too. Just a little bit. A little off the top there. Should make the difference. And sometimes the eye of your needle gets wax on the inside. There it goes. So you kind of have to clear that out too. But let me go ahead and restitch this one right back into place there, because I want my two ends to be symmetrical. So there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to come in with another row on the bottom, okay, down here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this this bead a little further down and do this second row. Hold on for me, you guys, just 1 second here. I'll let you look at that for a minute. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so I'm just going to come back and I'm going to weave my needle. See how I'm actually going through the beads? I'm going to weave my needle here, and I'm going to kind of look at it and go, I went through 3 and 3, so maybe that will be, maybe I'll go through one more and I'll start this bottom row right here. Okay. So the way I go across, I will stop when I have 1, 2, 3, 4 beads left on this side. Okay. So I start with 2 beads like I always start any row. I'm going to start with 2. I'm going to put the 2 on, and then I'm going to go through this thread bridge that's right there. Okay. And you can see these spread out kind of like that. Right? There we are. Now I send this needle back up, bead number 2 here. Make sure this doesn't come out of my needle. And now I'll just put on my single bead. I'm going from the back to the front underneath that thread bridge and stitch it up. So this is how, it's kind of like making short rows, sort of, when you're knitting, right? You go across and then you stop and then knit back. You don't complete the row. Kind of the same thing here. I'm going to put this one, maybe I'll put this one right here. Yeah. So this one, since the beads are the same size, these 8/0, I'm just stitching them into place in one. I'm going under one thread bridge, going back up the bead, and then I'll go over to the next thread bridge here. Let me get some more of those terracotta colors. And underneath, and you don't want to go past where you were, you know, you want to make it symmetrical. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got a stitch to about right there. This one has a little bit of a wave in it, so I might have, that row previously, I might have made it like 1 bead too tight, but usually it all kind of comes out in the end once you have another row on the top of it, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. And this is just something you'll kind of learn as you go along with this brick stitch. So underneath that bridge, up through the bead. Okay, like so. Do my count, 2, 4. So it looks like I've got maybe 1 more bead, 2 more beads. Let me see. I'll put this one on. Then I'll look at it. And you can see It looks like I need one more bead there. Okay. And so that's how you would continue to add your beads on. Okay, and you can continue to add your rows, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so now if we look at this earring, okay, can you see how I've put the 3mm fire polish here? Okay, and notice how I started it back here and it kind of came around, like here it would come around all the way like around like these shapes here. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do that. So I'm going to walk my thread back over here. So when I walk my thread back, this is when I go through my beads. Okay, so I go through that one. I'm actually going to go through, I should have gone through the other way because this bead, I'll catch it as I go around, so I'm not worried that it's kind of sticking up. But I'm just going to kind of go in and out. I'm going to go in this large bead because I want to come out right here. Right through this last A dot right there. See that? And see how everything is sitting there nicely? There it is. Okay. So now with this fire polish, the first one I put on has 3 beads. Okay. So it's kind of like a Picot. Okay. So I'm going to put on my 11-aught. I'm going to put on my 3mm. I'm going to put on my 11-aught. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to go underneath a thread bridge wherever I think this is going to sit the nicest. See, so I kind of took a visual cue from how long this was going to be, and I chose this thread bridge here. Okay, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to come up through that 11-aught, but instead of adding 3 beads, now I'm going to only add the last 2 in the sequence. Okay, so it's a 3mm fire polish and an 11-aught. Now here is where I make that jump. So I'm going to come maybe here to this thread bridge, maybe. Let's put this through. Yep, that looks about right. See how that looks like it sits okay? So now I'm going to come up through that 11. And it feels like this bead here, this like wonky A dot. I'm going to come up through that maybe and see if I want to fix it here. I'm going to bring this back. This is where you can kind of get into trouble a little bit here. What I could have done is stitch this down. I'm actually just going to keep stitching. Let me see how this looks. One of those 3 mils, one of these guys. I can also come back and stitch it down later too. Let me see if this turns the corner. Yeah. See, that doesn't look right. Okay. No. So I'm going to take this back. I am going to go through that A dot there, and that's where I'll make my next go. So inevitably, that necessitated me unstringing this needle. So let me string that back on. There we go. And sometimes you just have to troubleshoot this, like Kim Golias just said. If you haven't ripped out brick stitch, then you haven't done enough brick stitch. Okay, I'm going to come back. I'm going to go through this, kind of set that there, and come back in and set that there. There we go. That doesn't look bad at all. And I'm just going to come in, and instead of starting with a fire polish here, I think I'm going to start with another group of 3, because I think just having a fire polish stick out the end of this little section here is going to look kind of funny. So, you know, it's my design. I can do what I want with this, and I think that would look better. So let's see how that looks. Okay. Yeah. See how I think that row of 3, that 11-aught kind of fills everything in here. And now I'm starting with another 11-aught here. So we'll just go in, go up that 11, and let's just keep stitching as if nothing happened. Let's get this. So I need that 3 mil, that 11-aught under the bridge over there, back up, put on the 2, because that last bead is the last bead in the last sequence and the first bead in this sequence. Under the bridge, I'm skipping a bridge because that 3 millimeter is pretty big. See that there? How that's sitting there? And this goes up. And if there's too much space, this is okay, but you want to be really careful that you actually don't jump too far ahead and make, you know, and leave yourself a gap. So this one, I think if I come under here, whoops. There we go. So now I'm going to see, when I do this, I want to make sure that this corner and this corner are symmetrical. So, so let's see how I'm going to do that. It's an adventure for you and I. These 11-aughts work really nicely. I think this type of a thing, using all 3 sizes of the seed beads, gives you a lot of options, right? You can, those little 11-aughts will help to make the jump around corners and stuff. So here's this last one. So the last one here was 3. So it was an 11-aught, a fire polish, and another 11-aught. So I think that'll fit there. So I'm going to pick up those 2, and I'm going to go down through that 8-aught. And if I look at it, can you see that's pretty symmetrical here? Okay, like this. And then, so now I've just started, I'm going to start with another 11-aught. And this is KO that I'm using here, but you use your skinny thread of choice. For me, I like KO for this. This looks like it wants to sit here. KO or Hana will also work. You could use Fireline. I think, though, sometimes Fireline is a little springy for me. Whoops, can you see how I didn't really go under that bridge? I must have screwed that up somehow. So let's get that through. And then back through this bead. There we go. So that's what works for me. But everyone has their thread preference. But I like the KO. I'm going to come here. And I think what I'm going to do is go under that thread bridge, see how it sits, and I'm going to stitch back and down through that ending bead. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got here. Okay, so can you see how I started up here, went all the way around, made that little adjustment, came through that 8/0, went all the way around, tried to pattern it to match it, mirror it on the other side, and then came back through. So now we need to stitch a row of 11s, and we need to stitch that loop up here. Okay, so you can see with this one, I've done like several rows and stuff, right? So you can do whatever you want to do back and forth, but you can see that this earring is significantly smaller, right? But the scale is smaller. So let me bring this thread back up, and I'm going to brick stitch with some 11s. Okay, just how I did this picot across the top. Okay, so I'm going to start this one with 2. I've come in, and I guess maybe it wants to go there. Going from 11/0 or 8/0 to 11/0 can be a little, sometimes you've got the scale wrong when you go under that thread bridge, but there you go. See how those 2 are sitting there? So now I'm going to just do these singles, and I'm going to go a little bit more at Kate speed. What I want to be aware of, though, is where my center is, because I've got to get that ring dead center for my ear wire. Okay, so let me see if that looks right. It does. Let me do maybe one more. I'm getting dangerously short on thread, so we're going to have to add some thread, which is fine. No big deal. Okay. Let me see if I can get a couple more here, because I need enough to weave back in. I think I'm doing okay. So if this is my center, like this, let me lay it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's my center down there. So this looks like it's my center right here. So that looks like where my ring goes. So I need to do maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 more thread, 3 more 11/0. Okay, so see how I did that just with a visual. Okay, so before I do any of this business, I need to get rid of this thread and add a new thread on. Okay, let's not play thread roulette. So I'm going to go down. I'm just going to weave it back, right? I'm just going to weave it off. I'm just going to go back up and down through these like so. And I want to get to the point where I have a lot of thread, a lot of beads over here, because I can come in and kind of bury this thread back over here. I think this looks like a good place to stop it. Yes, because my needle came unthreaded. So there we go. All right. So to start that thread again, right? And I'll show you, Sherry asked about that green one. There's that green one for you while I'm stringing this needle. I'll get another yard of thread, cut it. They're kind of pretty in this smaller size too. That's the 1-inch ring instead of the 1 1/4 inch. Makes it go a little bit faster for me demoing wise to have something that's a little bit smaller. Okay, so here's this. I'm going to switch and use this needle with the larger eye. This is my regular beading needle here. Still, let me get it in my focal range. Maybe. As Emily says, needle the thread, don't thread the needle. Keep looking at those pretty samples while I get this needle threaded. I guess I should have some pre-threaded before the show. Maybe I want my sharps. I don't know. You can also, one of the things I'm going to need these pliers anyway. One of the tricks that Emily also taught me is once this is threaded, or once it's waxed, I can come in with my pliers and flatten that thread a little bit. And sometimes that makes everything go through that hole just a little bit easier. Didn't I say just a little bit easier? Gosh, why am I having so much trouble all of a sudden? It's because all of you are watching. Now and I also might have some wax in that hole. So let me give myself one more little clip here. When in doubt, just clip your thread one more time. Now I'm going to have to come in and also close that ring. There we go. That jump ring. That's going to be up here. Okay. So I'm going to do that now. You could also use a soldered ring for this, but there's my loop. Okay, that's what this is. This is going to connect to the ear wire. So now I'm going to come in and I'm just going to right here where I need my thread to be. I'm going to start it just like I did before. I'm bringing my thread around, leaving about a 4-inch tail, and tying that square knot. In this case, I'm going right over left, then I'm going to go right over left one more time, that square knot. I can add a little bit of glue there to that knot if I want. Then I'm going to bring that needle up and through this bead. Bring it through this bead that's next to it so it kind of, holds that one in place. There we go. And now it's like I've never missed a thread, right? So what did I say? I needed 3 more of these. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going, put that bead on, stitch up through the center. And to start the center around the middle, you just really do the same thing, but you do it in reverse, really. So I'll show you that. It's the same. You just have to kind of adjust your perception of where you're putting your beads. Okay, so here's this. Let's take a look again. Let's lay this out. This was my center, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I draw that imaginary line and I put this down, looks like I need one more bead. Okay. So I'm going to do that, one more. Now I'm just going to stitch this ring on. So see here, here's my thread. I'm going to come in and I'm going to go around the side of this ring. Back through that bead that I just put on, back through that terracotta bead that's in the base row. Bring my thread around the back. I'm kind of just almost literally brick stitching it in. So see how it's coming around? I'm going to go back up through that bead, back around and through that ring, and back down. So see how it's kind of stitched in there? And it looks like I need to kind of bring my needle next door and then go through that bead, through the ring, back down through that same bead. There we go. See how that's sitting pretty nicely there? I'm going to come up through here. Now I can start that brick stitch, and I'll brick stitch through. I'll get this, my 11-aught on. And since I'm going to start with 2, it's kind of like I ended here and I'm doing another start. So I'm going to start actually with 2. Let me see if those fit. Yeah, they fit nicely there. Come under that bridge. Just like that. See that? And so they just kind of sit there. Now, I want a thread. See how I have that thread coming out of this bead? I want the same thing happening on this one. So I'm actually going to backtrack my steps. Go back through that first bead, around the loop. I'll turn it so you can see it. Up through that last bead. And you guys, honestly, I'm just making this up, right? I'm just stitching where the opportunity is presenting itself, and I'm trying to make it symmetrical. Whoops. See, I have that thread. Let me see if I can back this up. I wanted to go through that orange bead, the terracotta bead. Sometimes going back through a seed bead, yep, it's caught. So you have to take the needle out, take the thread out, playing backtrack roulette again. Now, of course, I have to rethread this flippin' needle, but I got it. There we go. Great. So I go back through that terracotta bead, back through that mustard bead. And again, you're just stitching where the opportunity is presenting itself and making it symmetrical. So now I've come through that bead like I have here, go around the ring, now I just have to get my thread coming up through that bead again, right? So I'm going to go down. There we go. I'm going to go, I think I'm not even going to go around the hoop. I'm just going to come up and through these 2. And now I'm ready to start brick stitching again. Does that make sense? Okay. So one of these guys and through. Okay. So now I would just continue on until, yep, I'm doing okay on time. I want to show you that picot next. So we're just going to stitch at a fast speed so I can show you that last picot. I don't want to go too fast because I don't want it to all end in tears here, but I'm going to get to that picot. Brick stitching with 11-aughts. These suckers are small when compared to those 6s. They go a little bit slower, but that's okay. We're almost there. You just want to keep a tight tension You don't want the tension to be so tight that your piece is going to ripple, but you also, the tension in Brickstitch is what keeps everything nice and even and tidy and in place. So you can see as I go along, kind of the last thing I do, I come up through this bead like so, and I give it kind of a little tug like that to kind of, you know, put it in, kind of lock it in where it goes. Okay. And again, when you're stitching in the ring, just start. Just put the ring up next to where you want it. Send your thread through a bead and around the ring. And as long as you're kind of going around the ring and back through your beads, you're going to be okay. Just really look for the openings and the little places where you can needle through and just find the opportunity to add that bead. I'm gonna or add that stitch around the ring. Let's see, do I want one last 11-aught here? Let's see how it looks. Tighten that in. Yeah, I think it fits there. Good. So let's take a look. And now we're going to do the picot. Okay, so here's this. All right, looks good. So let's add the picot. Now the picot I stitch through. Okay, so I'm going to pick up, a picot is a series of 3 little beads. And I'm going to pick up those 3 beads. I'm going to needle up here and I'm going to go back down through this one. And then I'm going to come up through this one. Okay, so 3 beads on and down through its neighbor. And as I pull that thread tight, see how I get like a little pyramid or a little triangle of beads. Okay, now I'm going to needle up in the 11-aught next door. And see as I tighten, that little 3-drop picot sits nicely. I put on my picot, my 3 beads, and I go down the hole next door. Okay, needle up in the 11-aught next to that one. Get that picot. This picot would also look nice. I was thinking about it. You could do the side to one color and the one that's at the peak, the middle one, in a different color. That would add just a little pop of color on the edges of these. It would look really nice, I think. Right at the tips, especially maybe if it was a metallic, like a galvanized 11-aught, that would look good. It's just a thought, just a little thought that I had when I was making this. We'll go up this next one. And we'll use our 3. 1, 2, and 3. And down this one. Now I'm going to skip, I'm going to skip all this business here. I'm going to skip, let's make that sit in a picot though. There we go. I'm just going to needle down here, maybe. Maybe I'll needle down this one. If I can get it through. It wants to go through the back. Because I need to move my thread over Actually, I'm going to do it here. I'm not going to go through that one. I'm going to go through just this terracotta and up through this one. Because see how when I stopped this picot, I had 1 11-aught left here. So now I've got 1 11-aught left here. Okay. So now we just picot. So let's get these 3 on. Go down that one. Come up the neighbor next door. Make sure the picot is sitting nicely. There we go. You could even do this picot with a smaller, like if you're into 15s, which I don't know. We need to make a decision about 15s. They're so small. But size 15 would look really nice here as well as a picot. Did I come in the right one? No, I didn't. See what I did? I went down that bead instead of down the one next to it because I was thinking about 15s and freaking myself out. So what I'm going to do, this is another little trick that Emily taught me. Let's see if it works. Instead of passing the tip of your needle, the sharp side of your needle through, you just put your needle through the bead backwards, and sometimes that works for getting your needle through without having to, look at that, without having to unthread it. Look at that. There we go. Thank you, Emily Miller. So I've gone through that one. So I put my beads on too soon, so I need to get rid of these beads. See what happens when I talk about size 15s? I should just not. There we go. So I've gone through, down through that thread. I need to go up through its neighbor, or down through those beads. I need to go up through its neighbor. Then I add my 3 picot beads. That's okay. Then I've got one last one to do. Up through its neighbor. Then the 3. Looks like the decision is split on the 16s, but I don't know. We'll see. Janice and I will talk about it. We'll see. Now I'm going to go back down through that 11/0 and that 8/0 just automatically. And I'll come in here and I'll weave this off. I don't have to weave it off now. But you can see, let me lay this all down so you can see everything. If my thread will stop getting, come on now, stop getting hooked around. I'll come in, I'll weave this tail in later, and I'll weave this tail in. But you can see how nicely this looks here with that picot around. You can see I've made that shape. Here's the larger one here, right? And what I will do is I'm going to use a 4mm jump ring to attach these, what we call these basket weave earring tops to it, right? So I just open the ring and attach it to this ring and this ring, and then you've got your dangle. Okay, so let me show you how this is going to look with the whole thing. Let me get that out of the way, and let me get this earring off. So this earring, let me see if I can get the back off. After all that stitching, my fingers are all, really? Bear with me here just a second. I can get this backing off of the earring. There we go. Nice and tight, which is good. So earring goes in, and here's the back. You know, if you've been watching my broadcasts any length of time, you know I love a statement earring. So you can see the size on that, how nice that looks. And you can also see, whoops, this size and then this size next to it. So it's a little bit smaller if you wanted something a little smaller. But I love it, right? I'm ready for the Rhumba in this one. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this selection, this day of brick stitch and earrings. I think it's a really good one for, spring is coming. I know everyone's talking about how cold it is where everyone is, right? But spring is coming and you'll need some earrings, some say something earrings. Okay. So do remember that you can find all of the information on the project and the products from today's broadcast right on our website at beadshop.com. Right now, if you're watching this live on February 2nd, the project is right on the homepage. But if you're watching it on the replay, you can go to learning and go to projects, go to earrings and click on earrings, and you'll see all of the earrings samples that we make, but this particular design is called the Dancer. So click on that and you'll see all of the different designs that we've done, including this one called Rhumba. Also, you guys follow us on our social at beadshop.com on our Insta. Go ahead and join us over on Facebook at our Facebook group called The Bead Table. We'd love to have you over there. And of course, you can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel right at beadshop.com. And if you're watching this on replay, thanks so much for joining us on the replay there. People were asking about the Great Bead Extravaganza. There will be kits, so watch your emails, and I'll also post it in the Great Bead Extravaganza kit. I'm doing a bracelet. It's kind of a bead shop classic with a new twist that I think you're going to love. And I've got 3 colorways that you're going to want them all. You're going to want each 3 of those because it's going to be a great bracelet that's going to take you from spring into summer. Next week, so this Friday, we're going to finish up the loomed necklace piece, right? I'm going to show you how I finished that off. And then next week, I have a little something. I know how you guys love knots, love our knots, right? I have a knotting project that may or may not include this little special mix of beads and may or may not include Chinese knotting cord, but you're going to see that next Wednesday. So, stay tuned to the newsletter for more information on that. And thank you guys so very much for joining us for today's broadcast. Do give us a follow on our social, and we really appreciate your support, as always, of our small business, because without you guys out there, we here wouldn't be able to do what we love. So thank you so much all, and I will see you Friday for Free Tip Friday. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.